Xavier High, country folk, lend me your ears. I have come to talk about diversity. As most of you hearing this have devised, these lines, with some poetic license, are the opening words to the funeral eulogy of Julius Caesar by his best friend, Mark Antony. A funeral eulogy is not the image you had in mind. Well, I hope to convince you that we need to embrace death, the death of indifference, prejudice, and bigotry, in order to celebrate diversity. Making choices is the key to understanding diversity. An informed choice makes all the difference in the world. Many people, when they hear the word diversity, almost treat it as a curse, the D word. Of course, when one is considered a member of the group of people that are classified as minority or the other, then it is a little more difficult to understand what the commotion is all about. Growing up a young African American in a predominantly black part of town, I attended school in my earlier years, being the minority in a class filled with second-generation Americans, many of them white. By the time I entered 8th grade in the same school, I was a member of the majority. Most of the whites had moved out and were replaced by students who looked like me. But they didn't all have the same language skills as I did. Many spoke Spanish or Haitian Creole. I was one of the few that spoke the King's English, even though my mother's first language was Spanish. This background is important as I relate a story that taught me the value of knowing what diversity really means. You know, back then I used to party. You know what party means? I party. And when I partied hard. And here I was at Xavier, and we used to have these parties where we would invite the girls' schools and they'd come here. You guys still do that? And then what we would do is that we'd go to the girls' school party. So one day, it was a Friday night, I attended a party at an all-girls school in the upper part of the city. It was at 110th Street in Manhattan, and I lived in Brooklyn. It meant that I would be taking the train and traveling about 45 minutes by myself. I was at the party, and we were having a grand time. The party ended, and I was going home to Brooklyn. No one lived downtown, so I was going home by myself. Hey, no problem. I was from Brooklyn and feared no one or anything. The station was elevated, so you had to use an elevator to get onto the platform. When I got to the train station, there were a bunch of guys who had taken over the turnstiles. They told people to give them their token, and some they let through the doors, and others they told, get out. I looked at them, went over to the gate, and this guy stood in front of me. So here's the gate, the guy's behind the gate, and I'm standing there. By the way, I had on a long black cashmere coat with a velvet beret that had a pom-pom on top. Hey, laugh if you want, but that was the fashion of the time. Anyway, this guy, who looked just like me, got out of my way. I opened the gate, and I walked to the elevator. All the guys followed me into the elevator. I had made a choice to get in for free, and now I would pay for it. While we were in the elevator, they started talking in Spanish. I understood a little of what they were saying. They were talking about me and my hat. Well, I wasn't worried. They had let me in for free, right? Anyway, after 30 seconds or so, the elevator came to a halt, and I stepped out. And here's where I made my first mistake. I stepped to the right. They got out and turned to the right. There were some guys, of course, on the track, on the other platform where the uptown train would pull in. I don't know what these guys said, but all of a sudden, about 8 of these guys that were there with me jumped down the tracks, went over to the other platform, and beat those guys up. Just like that. And I'm watching this, and I'm not believing it. And I'm saying to myself, you know what? I need to get away from these guys. And I know that there's no way I can stay right by them. And all of a sudden, those guys that beat up the guys on the platform came back, they jumped back on the platform, and they were laughing, and they were carrying on. The uptown train pulled in, and all of a sudden, that platform was empty. At that point, I said, I've got to get away from these guys. So I turned, and I made another mistake. Because as I turned, I'm walking to the back of the platform, not the front. But by the time I realized it, they had formed a semicircle around me. And now all of a sudden, my back is to the tracks. And these guys are in a semicircle surrounding me. And I'm looking, and then one guy comes out, and he said, "My man, I want you to get down on the tracks." I said, "What?" He said, "No comprende? Get down on the tracks." And I looked. Now, remember I told you I was from Brooklyn? And back then, everyone carried a weapon. I mean, everyone. I had mine right in my pocket. I looked at this guy, and I thought, maybe I'll just take out my knife and stab this guy in the chest and start running. Of course, my knife was a penknife with a blade about yay big. I quickly realized that my blade would probably not even prick his jacket. So what did I do? What do you think I did? I climbed down on the tracks. And then all hell broke loose. Because they were laughing and carrying on, and it was funny. Because I'm on the tracks, they're on the platform, and then I looked down the tunnel. I saw the lights of the train. It was about 4 or 5 minutes away. When I saw those lights, I wanted to get back on the platform. I figured, look, they had had their fun. I'm on the platform. Everything's fine. I put my hand on the platform. The guy, that same guy who looked just like me, put his heel over my hand. And I took it off. And boom, his heel came down on the spot. He looked at me, and I realized he was not going to let me get back up. The train was now about 3 minutes away. I looked at the other side, but I didn't want to go near that third rail. And all of a sudden he said, "Yo, my man, don't think about going anywhere. Because if you do, we'll come down there," and I said, "Yo, brother," he cut me off. "I ain't your brother." Have you ever been on a platform and looked underneath the platform in the train station? Have you ever noticed the space under there? And for the first time, I said, wow, I have an out. So I made a decision that I was going to wait until the train was in the station, and right before it hit me, I would dive underneath the platform and get out of their way, and get out of the train's way. The train was now 30 seconds away. And that's when I made another decision and realized that I had made the wrong decision in going through those gates. But the guy looked just like me. Now, it was just seconds away. 30 seconds. 29. 28. 27. 26. 25. 24. 23. And then all of a sudden, a guy came out from the crowd. He was a very fair-skinned guy. He looked nothing like me. He said, guys, man, leave the brother alone. He put his hand over the platform and gestured for me to grab it. 15 seconds. 14 seconds. Horn! Horn! I heard the blaring of the horn in the tunnel. 14 seconds. 13 seconds. 12 seconds. I looked at this guy. Would he let my hand go before I got on the platform? Would the train crush me because I was on my back? Should I take my chances and jump under the platform? 10 seconds, 9 seconds. And now the conductor had me in his view, but he couldn't stop the train. Honk, honk, and it's coming, and it's coming, and it's coming. Finally, I looked this guy square in the eyes and I took his hand. He lifted me up and the train passed inches behind my back. It stopped. And before I could do anything else, they pushed me into the car. And they piled in to the train car. It was the last car. And when we got in there, it was guarded, the doors, by 2 guys. And the rest of the guys were going crazy. They were doing stupid things. Banging on the window. Hanging on the rails. It was crazy. I sat down across from the conductor's cabin. I tried not to look at the door across from me. I waited and waited until the doors began to close. Then, at the last second, I leaped through the doors, fell on the platform. I got up. The doors had closed and the train was pulling off, and all those guys were in the back window, looking and screaming and yelling at me. I rolled off, I got off my feet, and you know what I did? What do you think I did? I gave them a sign. With only one hand and one little finger, I expressed my feelings about those guys. I also screamed a number of words that I wouldn't repeat in a church or in public, for that matter. I brushed myself off. I put my velvet beret back on. I went to the elevator, went up to the street, and I took a cab to 86th Street. And I took the Lexington Avenue train home. All of this boils down to a matter of choice. I won't bore you with a recap. But it does matter what you choose to do when it comes to diversity. How do you look at that person who is not like you? You have heard my story on how I realized that it does not matter if he looks like me. What matters is how we treat each other, regardless of how we look. She should have died hereafter. There would have been a time for such a word. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time. And all our yesterdays have lighted fools the road to dusty death. Out, out, brief candle. Life is but a poor player who struts and frets his hour upon the stage and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. This is from the play Macbeth by William Shakespeare, when Macbeth is told that his wife, Lady Macbeth, was dead, probably of suicide. Please don't believe it. Life is more than an hour upon the stage. It makes a difference because it is a matter of choice. So, I end where I began. Friends, Xavierites, country folk, lend me your ears. I have come to share, to reveal, and to hopefully leave you with this reality. Diversity is the glue that binds us together as a race. The human